Hi, my name is Deserie Foley, and I'm the Assistant Director of PAX International. And thank you for joining us today on our 6th episode of Digital Minds Deciphered. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. And I'm here with my co-host, Steven.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steven Dubuque. Like Deserie said, this is our 6th episode of Digital Minds Deciphered, a platform and podcast that we started in an effort to normalize the conversation surrounding targeted individuals and gang stalking. Tonight, I'm excited to hear from Michael. He left a comment on one of our previous podcasts that really got me and Deserie's attention. And we asked him if he wanted to come on, and he agreed to do that. He's never told his story before, so this will be the first time that we all hear from him. So help me introduce Michael Haught, who I'm going to bring on here in a second. And let me just get him started with this first question. Why did you decide to come on to our podcast tonight? Keeping in mind we talk about targeted individuals and gang stalking. What does that mean in your case? What does that look like for you?
Okay. My name is Michael Haught. I'm originally from Iowa. I moved down here in '85 to be a teacher in Brownsville, Texas. And, I didn't know anything about gang stalking or being a targeted individual or anything like that. And it didn't happen until like around 2016 in fall. But anyway, being a targeted individual for me, I mean, at first I didn't know what it was. Things started happening, very bizarre things started happening. I was hearing music. Well, let me start at this. In the summer of 2016 in July, I moved to this condominium down by the border. You could see Mexico from the living room window of my condo. And I hadn't lived on my own for quite a while because I had this dog, and the dog eventually passed away, so I could move out on my own, because I could finally find a place where I didn't have to, take a dog with me. So I was searching for an apartment using different apps, and I wasn't having much luck. I mean, for like 2 weeks, I was looking, couldn't find anything. And then one morning, I woke up and it just hit me like, oh, I hadn't tried looking on Craigslist. Maybe I should, try looking on there. And so I, opened up Craigslist and entered in, looking for an apartment. And this ad for this condo came up. Now, this condo is right along the border. In fact, the border station was only a block away from the condo. And it used to be part of a hotel. It used to be part of Fort Brown Hotel. And of course, after years, as years went by, the hotel came out of use, and eventually they sold the property to the college. There's a college here in town, and they bought the property but they and demolished the hotel. But the condos, which were kind of on the same street and surrounding the property, they kept, because half of them were owned by private people and the other half was owned by the college, and they were using it for housing married couples. And so, there was this ad for this condominium, this 1-bedroom condominium with pictures and everything. I mean, it was the first thing that came up when I opened it. And, I looked at it and read the thing, and it had everything I was looking for. The prices were right. I mean, everything about it was, like it was tailored just for me. I mean, I was like, I can't believe this, So I called the owner of the condo and made arrangements to rent it. And she called me back the next day and said, yes, you can rent this condo. So that's when I moved to this condo. Now, mind you, like we were saying before, I didn't know anything about being a targeted individual or anything, So, I moved into this condo and I was happy, it was on the second floor overlooking the swimming pool and it was a nice condo. And so for the first 2 or 3, 4 months, everything seemed, cool. But then I started waking up in the middle of the night around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would hear music playing, like the neighbor was playing music. And, at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And, I'm laying there thinking, like, why am I hearing this music at 3 o'clock? And to top it off, it was Christmas music of all things. I mean, this was like in August, and it's Christmas music playing. And it's not just ordinary Christmas music, it's the religious Christian hymns, the Christmas hymns, that you would sing at church. And so these were playing, and I thought, well, this neighbor, that lives upstairs apparently loves Christmas music, and I didn't think anything of it, but this just kept happening, on almost every morning for like, going on 2 weeks or something. And I finally called the maintenance man, who was the one who showed me the condo when I went to buy it or rent it, because the woman who owned it lived in Chicago. And so he, came over, and I was, saying, look, I hate to complain, he says, I'm not a kind of person, the renter to complain, but I said, the neighbor upstairs is, playing music at like 3 o'clock in the morning, And I said, and, on top of this, not just music, it's Christmas music. And he's looking at me like what, And he goes, really? And I go, yeah. And he says, you hear this every night? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, I don't know what to tell you, but the person that lives above you is the head nurse for the night shift at one of the hospitals here in town. He goes to work at 7 at night, doesn't come back till 7 in the morning. And, I'm sitting there like, oh, okay. And, he said, I don't know what to tell you, And I said, well, he said, you shouldn't be hearing any kind of sound coming through the walls. He said, this building is soundproof and stuff. And so, he said, well, look, I want you to tell this to somebody. So he says, come with me. So we step out the door, and the door right next door, he knocks on it, and this gentleman opens the door, and they're talking to each other in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish since I'm from up north. And then he turns to me and he says, he looks at me, and then he looks at him and he says, tell him what you told me, And so I told this guy about what I just told you all. And he says, I hear that music too. And I go, you do? And he goes, yeah. And then he says, have you seen the children? And I said, the little boy and the little girl? And he goes, yeah. Have you seen them? I go, yeah. And he says, when have you seen them? I said, like maybe midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, I go outside and smoke a cigarette, and I look down there, be this little boy walking with this little dog, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, And he goes, the custodian says, well, this is a home for elderly people and married couples, he said, and only the married couples can't have children here. So there's no children here, I'm like, okay. So, I knew at that point something very strange was happening, and so maybe a month later, I'm sitting in my living room. I finished watching the evening news, and I turn the TV off, and through the air conditioning vent coming into the living room, this voice says, "You're not like the others." And I said, "What?" And I'm looking around like, where's that voice come from? And from the the vent again, he goes, "You're not like the others." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You don't get scared." And I said, because I've been seeing spirits most of my life, and they don't scare me, and he says, "Get out of my house," like that, yells at me, and I said, "I'm not leaving." I said, whoever you are, you need to cross over or, move on. I said, you're not welcome here. And so, I pretty much, said, I'm not listening to you. I don't want to hear it. What you have to say. So I went back and I went to bed. I turned the radio on. So I put, the fan, I have, turned the fan on so I couldn't hear it. And this went on, for a couple months until he finally said, look, we're not spirits. We're humans using advanced technology to communicate with you and to harass you. And he said, I said, really? And he goes, yes. And he goes, you'll never figure it out. You're too stupid to figure it out. I said, oh, really? I have a college degree. I'm too stupid to figure this out. He goes, yeah, you'll never figure this out. And I go, okay. So I started doing research. And then that's when I discovered about targeted individuals. And so I started, doing a lot of research and reading up on it. It was saying that, there were two types of E2K. One was they could do it directly, beam the sound directly to your head and make it sound like anywhere in the room, or they could piggyback it on the frequencies emitted by appliances, car engines, running water. They said you could hear, the voices and stuff coming through that, but if you turned them off, and of course that would stop, And that was what I was experiencing at first, was all of this singing, Christmas music, talking was coming through, the white noise, created by the fans and the refrigerator, whatever was running in the apartment, the air conditioner. And so, but, after I, figured that out, was turning that off, they came back and they said, oh my God, he actually figured it out. And they said, that's no matter, we can do this. And then that's when they started doing the direct targeting where they were, shooting voices into my head. And
Michael, do you think that they were doing an experiment on the people that were in the apartment complex? Do you think that they were experimenting on a lot of people to see who can hear the voices? Because that other person was hearing it too.
Yeah, and I thought about that too, and I think you're right. And I'm going to have to be leading up with that here in a little bit. What's really odd, I only lived there for 2 years, a little over 2 years, and the owner, her name was Gloria, and she lived in Chicago, and she would come to Brownsville like once a year. And every year that, when she would come, she would call me and tell me she wanted to come by and say hi. She would always bring me a box of donuts, which I love donuts. But anyway, she would come over, and I would go out and greet her and everything. And I'd say, well, come on in. And she goes, oh no. And I go, yeah, come on. I want you to see what I've done. No, I don't want to go in. And I thought, that's so weird. I mean, she owns the condo. You would think she'd want to come in and see, what kind of condition I'm keeping it in, And she goes, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to go in there, And so that really kind of set up some red flags, is that she did not want to go in there. And the other, the three incidences where I had what I would consider possible gang stalking happened there at the condo, and it was with people. I mean, the people that were participating in it, I guess, if it was, gang stalking, they lived there, or because there was one time I was there in my unit. I had been working on some paintings and stuff, and I was taking a break, and this guy showed up to see the neighbor next door, and he had some kids, and they were out in front of my window, playing these games, with a ball and stuff, making all kinds of noise and everything, which they're not supposed to do that. Hello, this is an elderly people's home, and so that was very suspicious. I thought, it's almost, I sat there and thought, it's almost like they're doing this on purpose, but it didn't really, faze me. I mean, I don't really pay attention to what other people do, whatever they do, that's in their business. I don't really pay attention to. And then there was a time where I thought, like Stephen was saying, he was looking for devices and stuff. It sounded like there was one of those little remote control cars or trucks that you would use with a remote stick thing, and that was driving inside of the air conditioner. I can hear it go overhead and stuff and everything, And so I was opening up the vents and looking in there, trying to see, like, where is that? What is that? And I turned to look out the window of the bedroom, and I could see three people standing down in the parking lot, just standing there staring at me, which I'm sure, I looked pretty weird opening up the vents and, was looking in there and everything. But, it's like people just don't go stand, in the parking lot and stare at people's open windows. I just.
Oh,
so that was
Mike.
the second time.
Michael, real quick, that just brought back a detail that I forgot all about. One night when I was like just losing my mind trying to figure out what's going on, like I noticed this bright floodlight, like this light shining into my window, and I go and look, like all like what is that? And there's two people down there just looking into my window right next to this light, and it looks like they're like cranking something on the ground. And I'm and I wish in retrospect I would have handled that differently. I should have gone outside and been like, what are you guys doing? But instead I was like so gripped with fear that I just like went away from the window. Anyway, I can relate. Yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
But I had similar incidences like that happen too. But this continued on. I mean, this kept, and then it started escalating to where I would be in bed at night and I'd wake up, and in the bedroom it had a storage room, a door, and then it had the one length of the wall was a closet, and on each end it had a door on each end. And I'm sitting, I got up to go to the bathroom, and I come back and I lay down, and then I hear voices coming from the closet, like, oh, here he is, he's awake, and then it was usually two guys and a woman's voice, and they would be coming from each of the closets, and I knew nobody was in there, but I mean, it sounded like somebody was in the closet talking, and that was a bit disturbing, and they did all kinds of other things when it was getting really bad. I mean, because they were bound and determined they were going to get rid of me. They did not want me in this condo. They made that perfectly clear. They said, we don't want you here. You need to get the fuck out. We hate you. All this other shit. And I'm an artist, and I had a painting business, and so I had part of my room was set up as a studio, and so I would work on paintings. So they would be talking from the closets as I'm painting, and they're saying like, they're not very good artists and stuff. But oh, really? Well, I have a degree that says otherwise. And they would do shit like that. They would be talking to me while I'm, trying to concentrate on my work or whatever, painting, and they would just, do, they would just say, things just to piss me off, to get me mad, and I'm very defiant. And they said that. They said, you're so defiant, you're so rude, disrespectful. I said, what do you expect? You come in invading my privacy, and you want me to treat you like you're welcome? I mean, get real, So, and I would have arguments with them, and sometimes it would last all night. And the good thing is I'm retired. I retired 13 years ago, so thank God this happened after I retired, because if this was happening while I was actually working teaching, it would have destroyed my career. I would not have been able to teach as long as I did. And so I'm thankful that it started then. But I eventually, it got to the point where eventually I did move out of there. And I found this place where I'm living now, which happens to be across the street from the funeral home. And,
oh, wow.
And another thing I didn't tell you is this condo. This condo was part of it was part of this hotel. The hotel was demolished. They saved the condos, and they were renting them out. And a friend of mine came over, and I was telling him these things that were happening, and I said, I don't understand, why, I mean, yeah, I people were telling me, like, are you sure you want to live there? You know, that place is haunted. Like, you know, every place I've lived is haunted. You know, it's no matter where I go. And they said, you know, they said, well, where are you? And he said, well, don't you know? And I said, no, what? And he said, the land that this condo, this building is sitting on, used to be the graveyard, the mass graveyard for the Fort Brown during the Civil War. And after the wars, they would dig big pits and they would throw the bodies in there and they would bury them. And I said, so I'm living in a fucking cemetery? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh my God. You know, no wonder shit like this is happening, you know. And, you know, so they, you know, as this was going on, you know, they were making me see apparitions. But the thing is they didn't look the way I normally would see spirits. And I've been able to see, I've seen spirits periodically throughout my life. I don't see them all the time. I'm not like the Sixth Sense where, you know, I talk to dead people. I'm not like that.
Can you explain the difference? Because for my own, can you explain the difference? Because I don't know how to tell the difference, because the same thing with me. I've always been connected to what you want to call the other side since I was a little girl. And then now it's like I have all of these like visions and everything, and now I can't tell the difference if it's real or not. So if you can try to tell me, I know it's not the same for everybody, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. When I see spirits, I see them as they were when they were alive. And they look as solid and three-dimensional as you and Steve look to me. You know, if we were all three standing together, that's how you would look. But the thing that gives it away is they will stare at me. Staring to the point where they don't even blink their eyes. They'll be staring at me, and they won't look away. And then if I start to approach them, they will turn around and head in the other direction. They never say anything. They don't speak at all, never. And so I see them as they were when they were alive. So when I started seeing these other apparitions, they were appearing to be slightly transparent. They appeared to have less color, almost like an old black and white film that was colored, you know, like so I mean, they would look somewhat three-dimensional, but I could kind of see through them. And like one apparition, I opened my eyes, he was standing by my bed. He had no head, you know, but it looked digitally, like it was digitally removed, you know. And he was standing there like this, you know, and but he had no head, you know, which, you know, didn't scare me, you know, because I'm looking at him thinking like, you know, like, why does he have a head? I mean, you can't even see where his neck was. And then so I reached over to touch it, and then it disappeared. And so if they're not human, if they're not portraying images of humans, they're doing like shadow beings. They tried to do shadow beings, but the shadow beings, they made one appear up on my ceiling in my bedroom that crawled from one corner to the other, and when it got to the other corner, it turned around and was stuck to the corner, you know, like it was, you know, and it looked like a thin, lanky type man, I think, with like not a pointed hat, it was like a pilgrim type hat, but it was all shadow. Yes. But it was very scratchy. It didn't look solid. It looked almost charcoal gray. It didn't look black. It was charcoal gray. Is that what you saw? The same thing?
Well, yeah. I mean, just how it like went from one wall and you know, I'm taking this word from Matthew Aaron. He did a presentation on targeting, and he said that these shadows seem to like reach across or loom over you, and it was like looming over. Like I was on my bed and I saw it like loom over, and
right.
I mean, when you said something about the hat, that I'm not that really struck something to me. I don't want to say for certain that that's exactly what I saw, but it sounds pretty familiar. Anyway, I'm sorry.
And I want to add something. I want to add something really quick. So when I used to see them, they would come in threes. There was always three of them. and they would come into my bedroom, and it was like usually the time where I was suffering the most, where I had the heartache or whatever. And I used to tell them, I'm like, are you here to feed off me? Are you here to feed off me because you only come around when I'm suffering? And then I always thought, and I could be wrong, I thought that the shadow beings was somebody's, either a human or entity's consciousness that was either, out of body projection or some sort into the room. That's what I've always thought they were, but I still don't know what they were, but obviously it's common with TIs. But go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know if you know the program, The Dead Files. Have you ever heard of the show The Dead Files on the Travel Channel? There's the host of the show is Steve Dubuque, who's a detective, and a very well-known psychic, Amy Allen. And I became friends with her when they started the show back in like 2010. And she told me, I mean, the first time I communicated with her, she goes, "You are a very strong, sensitive." And she goes, "You see spirits, don't you?" And I go, "Yes." She goes, "Most people who see spirits more than once in their life are sensitive. Guaranteed," she said. And she said, "Not only that, you're an empath." She goes, "So you have this ability to see spirits because you've had a near-death experience." And I go, "Yes." and she said she wanted me to tell her that story, and I said, "Well, when I was real little, I was like 3 years old. My dad was in the military. I was born on a military naval Air Force base in Maryland, and we lived on the base in track housing, and they used back then castor bean trees as ornaments in their yards." And this neighbor boy who was autistic, he was real mean to all the kids there, and he forced me to eat these castor beans. And castor beans have the poison ricin in them, and there's no antidote for ricin. And I started getting really sick, and my mother rushed me to the emergency room there, and they took me into. She said they took me into the emergency room, strapped me to the table, started pumping my stomach, And she said that, that's all she knew at the time. She said they wouldn't let her go in with me, when they took her in there. And I had this near-death experience. And I remember clearly. I mean, it was only 3 years old, but I remember very clearly. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing because it's a long story thing. But in this vision, I saw what I would consider to be my guardian angel, and it didn't, at the time, it didn't make, it didn't strike me as anything important until later, and in life, as after I moved into the condos, I started having dreams, very vivid dreams, and in these dreams, this angel, and I'm going to call him Michael, since they say you're named after, the Catholic faith believes that if you're named after an angel or saint, that they protect you. And my mother said, "I named you Michael so you would be protected by Michael the Archangel." And so I referred to him as Michael. And he told me, he said in this dream, he said something to the effect of, because at the time I started experimenting with meth. And don't ask me why. It was stupid, but I did it, and I'm going to confess it. And I'm saying, that really didn't help, and he had said in this dream, he said that drug is evil, and he said it's when a chemist makes that drug, it's like a warlock or a witch creating a potion, and they recite these incantations over it while they're making it. And they said, so when people that are sensitive use it, it opens portals, because we're already like a portal. And they said, and so he was telling me, that I needed to stop doing this, that I need to stop, and which I did, because it was aggravating my asthma, and I just I couldn't do that. And so I see this person, this being, angel in my dreams. And when all of these voices and everything were going on and it was driving me crazy, I fell to sleep one night and he appeared in my dream and he said, he came up to me and he said, now you know why I don't let spirits talk to you. And he, then it was like, ding, because that's, these people were saying they weren't spirits, they were human beings using advanced technology. And that was a confirmation for me, at that point. And so when I moved, like I said, I moved here to this place and they followed me. Of course, it's going to follow you wherever you go from now on, I mean, they still use V2K on me through the fans and, through the noise at night when I'm trying to go to sleep. But it got to a point where I was just, at my wits' end. I read that when they use V2K, that the frequency that it operates as in also is the frequency that spirits manifest. And I was thinking at that time, I was thinking, well, maybe what I'm seeing as apparitions, these ones that are transparent stuff, really aren't. Maybe it's these, people doing this, And I thought, well, the only way I'm going to know is I need to go and I need the help of a priest, a Mon Senior. So I went to see a Mon Senior at the Catholic Church here. And as I'm driving there, they're screaming and yelling at me through the speakers in my car, telling me, don't you fucking go talk to him. He's going to think you're an idiot. You're going to think you're crazy. And I'm saying, I don't care. I'm going, And I go and I see this Mon Senior. I go in. I'm with him for an hour and a half in his office, telling him, everything like I'm telling you now. And he sat there and listened the whole time, never, he didn't, he never rolled his eyes or acted like he was getting impatient, And when I got through the whole story, the first thing he said is, I've heard that music too. And he says, I know the demon you're dealing with because I've dealt with him before. And that just like, struck me, like all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay. And so he said, look, you're not the first person to come see me from those condos. He said, other people that have lived there have come to see me and have been telling me the same thing. But he says, what you've been experiencing is like way beyond anything that they've been reporting. And he goes, what's happening to you is out of control. And it's because you have these abilities, He said, they see that, they recognize that. And he said, I think what's going on there is there's an occult that owns the property and that they have attached the demon to this property. They perform these rituals, they bound this demon to this property, and they use it to draw in people to this condo to target them, like Deserie was saying. Do you think that they were? And I think yes, because that's what he was saying. He was saying, I think some of the people that live there are witches and warlocks. He says, I think they're performing these rituals and stuff, and they like to target people with abilities because they want to draw them in. They want you to join because you can bring in the spirit energy a lot easier than because they don't have that ability. So they try to find people with those types of abilities, whether it's being a medium, or you just see spirits, or you can talk to them. That whatever your ability is, they like to capitalize on that and use that in the rituals. We said when they realized that you weren't going to be a good subject, that you would not cooperate, and they saw that you have no control over your ability, then they didn't want you anymore. And the one thing that really pissed them off, and I had told the Mon Senior this, was I had gotten up one morning and a cold front had come in early in the morning. And so I got up and I opened the window to my bedroom so that the wind, breeze could blow through it. And I go, this was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I go over to the window and I kneel on the couch, because the couch is in front of the window, lean down, and I pull the window up, and I pull it up. I see a crowd of people standing down by the swimming pool. And, they're all standing around randomly, and they're not dressed for the cold. they're standing there, and the wind is blowing, the rain is blowing, but their hair wasn't moving or anything. You know, they were all just, and they all turned and looked at me, you know. And I stand there, I was like freaking out because I'd never seen that many, you know, apparitions in one place at one time, you know. And so, you know, I got off the couch and I walked over to the kitchen. I stood there for a minute and I thought, did I really see that? So I go back over and kneel on the couch again, and sure enough, they're all standing there looking at me, you know. So I thought, well, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to call forth, you know, the light, you know, or some kind of being angel or something that can come and help these people cross them over. And so I told them, I said, I'm going to close my eyes now. I'm going to concentrate on bringing. I'm sorry, my nose is running. I'm going to bring the light, and you all can go into it, you know. And when I did that, the couch went up like this. The couch, you know, stood up on one end and threw me off the couch. I landed on the floor, and I watched it slowly go back down. And I'm sitting there like, okay, that was not advanced technology. I don't know what did that, you know. And they all started yelling like, "Don't do that! Don't ever do that again!" You know. And of course I didn't, you know. And I told the Mind Senior that, and he goes, "Yeah." He says, "You need to leave there." He said, "Because if you don't, it may escalate to something much worse, you know." And he says, "I think what's going on is this occult is using witchcraft and advanced technology. They're using a combination of the two together, and that's what they're doing to these people, to targeted individuals. They're you know, people that have these special abilities, and that's why they're being targeted." And I don't know if all the targeted individuals feel like that. I don't know, but I feel for me, that is what started them targeting me. I mean, you know, I'm 64 years old. At that time, I was, you know, like 55, you know. So, I mean, harmless, you know, old man, you know, like what kind of damage could I do? And you know, why there just didn't seem any real good reason for them to start targeting me, except for what the Mind Senior had said, you know, about the people living there and this, you know, combining.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they target people for all sorts of different reasons, all sorts of different people for different reasons. You know, and just for people watching this, like I don't cherry pick who I'm going to interview, you know, people I can relate to or whatever. But in this case, it seems like Michael fell into the same category that I did, which is one of these categories. And it seems like when people like myself, when I moved into a specific apartment, it was like, it was fine for a little while, but like, man, it was in the end.
I'm sorry. Did you feel like they drew you there? They lured you there? Because
yes.
That's what the Mind Senior said to me. He said they lured you there. That's why when you.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I didn't. The first apartment, like, I was in detox, and I didn't even make any effort to get the apartment. Like, my job at the time that I only been working for a couple months found me the apartment, set me up with the landlord, which has never happened. Like, I've never heard of a job that you've only been with for a couple months doing that. And it was just, and man, it just felt like, so and it's not just me and you either. There's a bunch of targeted individuals who say the same thing. Like, they moved into an apartment, and whether it's the neighbors or the landlord or it just, things get weird. And it seems like, and like, I wonder how many other people moved into that apartment I was at and had similar experiences. And also, like, about the witchcraft thing, like, you might be right. And you know, looking into my landlord, who was my main perpetrator, who, by the way, when you were speaking, all sorts of similarities. A lot of the V2K was bullying me to get the fuck out. You know, you're not going to get your money back. You're just going to go. And like taunting me, like, and you won't be, you won't do too good in the sober house, will you, Steve? Not the way you know, like, all just nasty stuff like that.
Yeah.
But looking into him after the fact, like I found him on Facebook, and I saw all sorts of like pictures of him like doing like, like Masonic symbols, like that, or blocking out one eye, the sunlight blocking.
Yeah.
So, dude, I mean, the dude seems like he's into witchcraft, or at least Freemasonry. So I don't know. I find some interesting correlations there for sure.
Yeah. I found the neighbor that told me about the little kids and stuff on Facebook, but I mean, within minutes of me finding him, all of a sudden he disappeared. So I don't know if it showed him that I was on there, or he had people watching out, because they removed him from my news, where I couldn't find him. Needless to say, I'm not on Facebook anymore. They permanently banned me from Facebook about 2 months ago, and part of I was posting my political views and stuff, but I was also posting stuff about targeted individuals. And the one thing that got me permanently banned was I found this video about DARPA, that DARPA had created Facebook and gifted it to Mark Zuckerberg. And Mark Zuckerberg's last name is really Rockefeller, and because how the Illuminati families intermarry and everything, and they were saying that DARPA did this so that the FBI, the CIA, and they could access people's profiles at will. There'd be no stopping them. I mean, I had my Facebook thing all set up to just where my friends would see it, but they got me. I got banned, permanently, forever, and not only from there, from like Instagram, anything doing with Meta, I've been banned from. So,
wow.
They didn't like me. They didn't like that little article about DARPA being,
I have a question for you, Michael. I wanted to ask you, so I want to like back up a little bit because I wanted to ask it to you. Okay, so you were talking about that you were having this vision of Angel Michael. Okay, so my question is that we all know this is a behavioral modification program, and that the goal, it kind of seems like the goal for this program for certain individuals, especially somebody that is I guess messing around with drugs, is that their goal is to see if they can try to change your behavior and get you off of drugs, and they're using what they call the voice of God weapon. So they're going to
they tried that on me.
Yeah, they're going to show you a spiritual being, and they've done it to me before too, to get you to do what they want. So can you honestly say that you're 100% positive it was an angel versus technology?
Yeah, the angel figure I'd been seeing since I was a little kid, and so unless they been following me all the way back to when I had the near-death experience, I just I would never. I'd only see him very rarely in my dreams, and would always just appear in the shadows. He never really talked to me until all this stuff started happening at the condos. And that's when he was saying, this is why, because I asked him in this dream once, how come they, I see spirits, but they don't talk to me? And he said, because I don't let them talk to you. And I said, why? And he said, because their problems are not for you to solve. And then years later, when I'm in the condo and having this dream, and he comes to me in the dream and he says, this is why I don't let them talk to you. In other words, pointing out that this proves that they're not spirits. The ones that are attacking you are real people using technology. And that's the impression I got from the dream. And they even tried, to discredit these dreams, saying, no, because they say, we can see your dreams and we don't see them. I said, you think my guardian angel is going to let you see him having communications with me? I said, we can meet out of time and space. I said, you wouldn't even know it. And they're like, no. They were trying to, you don't have any abilities. They're saying, oh, okay, I guess the things I've been experiencing all my life, and just, I'm not having it, And so they were trying very desperately to convince me that they were the ones making these apparitions, appear. Which the ones that I say, like the ones that are somewhat transparent stuff, I believe those were them. But there was a confirmation before I moved out of there, that I know, to reassure me that I did have these abilities, that I wasn't, Looney Tunes, that I've been all my life experiences. In the living room of the condo, I had one big picture window, and you couldn't smoke in the unit, so I had a plastic, lawn chair sitting out next to the window, out, on the walkway, the breezeway, and the windows have burglar bars on it. So I would open the windows, I'd leave the windows open, I would just let the blinds down, but I would leave the blinds open at slant downwards, to where if you're outside, you would look, you couldn't see them unless you got down, and looked underneath. And I woke up, one night to go to the bathroom, and I just had this urge to walk out into the living room. I don't know why, but I walk out into the living room, and there, sitting in this chair outside the window, is this guy, this short little Mexican guy, and he's sitting there. He has like this patterned blue shirt with colored dots and stuff, patterns on it, and then he had like bleachings on, and he was sitting sideways like this, looking up through the blinds, next to the window, which considering that where I lived, that and that it was all lit up, that was very risky if that was somebody, a gang stalker or anything. But the thing is when I walked out in the living room, and I saw him there, and he was already staring at me in the face. He's already staring in my eyes, and we're standing there looking at him. He's looking at me, and he's just sitting there, and he has this like stern look on his face. And he's looking at me, and I just like, okay, well, that must be a spirit. And so I turned around and walked away. And then when I turned back and looked, of course, he was gone. And so that to me was a confirmation that, see, this is the way I see spirits. I don't, whatever they're doing, whatever they're showing me, that's them using technology. And they're trying to make me believe that they are the ones causing me to have these, being able to see these spirits randomly, which, I know better. So that's the way I interpreted it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
We're getting a little bit of feedback, Stephen. I don't know if it's like almost like a, yeah, it's you. It's always you. Yeah, I don't know. Are you hearing it too, Michael? There's like feedback.
Yeah, I was hearing a little bit. I thought
it's
like
always coming from Stephen. It's like someone's talking in the background, right? See, we're not, we can all hear it,
Right.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well,
I wanted to ask you a question. Like, how long have you been able to see spirits and sense their presence? I mean, has it been all your life, or did something happen that caused you to start? I mean, did it start with your targeting, or I'm kind of curious.
No. It started.
I didn't think it did.
It started when I was a little girl. I remember that one of the first memories I had is I woke up, and I would say maybe I was 5 or 6 years old, and I woke up, and there was these 5 transparent looking beings standing around my bed, and when I went to like speak to them, I was like looking at them, and they were you can almost like see through them, and but it was humanoid, but they had no face. They were energy beings. And
I've seen that.
And I was paralyzed. I was paralyzed, and the beings came and sat on the bed, and then they told me that they loved me. And I had told them telepathically, because obviously I'm not able to like even move because I'm paralyzed. And I tell them that they don't look like, I'm like, who are you? You don't look like Jesus. And that's what I had told them when they were in my room. And then I kept having these events happen throughout my childhood, through my teenage years until I was 20, where they seem to always come into that reality dimension when you're trying to go to sleep. You're not quite asleep yet, but you're still awake in this reality, but drifting off into the next, but you're still aware of everything that's going on. that's how they
Right.
appear. And I don't know how what you call that, but now it seems like the government, the military, has found a way to access that dimension of reality, and that's how they're coming in and speaking to me too. But they're coming in as humans. They have figured out a way to use whatever those beings are doing to speak to me in that same manner when I'm trying to go to sleep. I don't know if that happens to you.
No, what I think is kind of like, I think they're causing, because I did see the energy beings before I moved from that condos to here. I remember because they were harassing me big time the last night I was there. I mean, that was a night I'll never forget, because they just let all hell break loose, you know. And I saw the three energy beings, one tall one, a medium sized one, and a little one. They were standing outside the front window, and they're doing like this, you know, and they're looking around, you know, but they were outside, they weren't inside. And which, you know, gave me a little bit of comfort, you know, if they weren't inside. But you know, I've seen the shadow beings, I've seen the energy beings, the various apparitions. Those are the things that it's really kind of wound down where I don't see that much. I mean, every once in a while they'll try to pull the shadow beam crawling across the ceiling, you know, to see how I'm going to react or something, and I'll just see like, okay, whatever, you know. And you know, so they're not constantly hammering me. I mean, with the V2K that they can access, you know, white noise or the chips in the back of these appliances and stuff. You know, that is so faint now that I can still hear it. Sometimes it's louder than others, but it's always prevalent. And if I'm in my car and I'm driving and I turn the radio off and I'm driving out in the country, I will hear that coming through, you know, the white noise and stuff. And
hey, I'm going to interject with a little thing about that, because another thing that you're talking about is really hitting home with me, because so and it's about the faint music through an air conditioner.
Or a blow dryer. I hear it through a blow dryer too.
Or yes.
So this happened while I was sober. So like after, like you said, you saw my 3 videos about like my main targeting experience. So this one I'm talking about now happened like last summer while I was sober, while I was clean. So I wasn't on anything. And it was just so weird. Like I was dating this girl, and I didn't really trust her, whether it was because she was a gang stalker and trying to keep tabs on me, or whether I just don't trust people, as you know, I'm not sure if she was like involved or not, but I just didn't trust her, and I was going to break up with her. But I had to like work up the nerve to break up with her. It took me like a week. I was like, like I want to do it, but I don't want to hurt her feelings. So anyways, this one day after like a week,
right?
He's over there breaking hearts.
After So I swear to God, this happened, and I have only told like 1 or 2 other people about it. Just because I still question like did that even happen? But I know it did. I was, after a week of building up, like on this particular day, I was like, okay, today is going to be the day that I break up with her. And now, mind you, I haven't heard V2K nobody in months at this point. And this one day, I'm like trying to get some rest, and I'm like, I know I'm going to break up with her later that night. And all of a sudden, like I'm like trying to like sleep, and I hear my air conditioner's on, and I start hearing this song by 98 Degrees, like it's the hardest thing I'll ever have to do.
Oh my God!
Turn around and say, I swear to God, and say that I don't love you. So I was listening to this for a second. I'm like, that's weird. I was living in a halfway house. I'm like, who's listening to 98 Degrees right now? But it keeps the chorus of it keeps repeating for like a minute, 2 minutes, and it's not playing any other part of the song. I'm like, what the? So I get up. I'm like, I'm trying to listen. I turn the air conditioner off to hear it better, and then the music just stops.
Just stop.
Like, wow. So
it bounces sound. That's what's happening, is that it's the voices bounces off the sound. That's why it gets louder. and the same thing with air conditioner, running water, blow dryers, because that's happened to me the other day. I was blow drying my hair and this song was playing, and clearly it wasn't even me like having a song stuck in my head. It was playing word for word. I didn't even have to think about it. And then when I looked at my phone, it was playing a whole different song. It wasn't even playing that song that I thought was playing on my phone. So that's why I was like, oh my God, that was weird. So yeah, it was the blow dryer.
Yeah, so they're up to it again, you know. That's how I always look at it. It's like, oh, here we go again, you know, because I only hear it, if at night I hear it when I go to bed, but I'll hear it periodically out in public. Okay, there's one other thing that I wanted to touch on, which is the thing that really I feel violated about, and that's that there's this device that has self-assembled in my left eye. And I watched it, over a period of time, construct itself, and it's so I even went to an optometrist, who is a friend of mine. He was the drummer in the band I was in with my brother. And so I went to see him, and I was telling him about, what kind of trying to, in a way, tell him, what was happening. And he just, really didn't pay much attention, but he did some image, took some images and stuff of it. And he said, well, the only thing I see is there's this space behind your eyeball, between your eye socket and your eyeball. And he said, when I was 40, in my right eye, I had what they call venicular detachment. And that's where the eye becomes separated from the back of the eye socket. And where this cord that would connect it, it filled up with blood, and it had a spot. I had this red spot in the middle of my vision in my right eye for several months. And he told me, that was normal for men in their 40s, and he said it'll eventually disperse, which it did. And so I didn't, I just went about my business. And so when this started happening, I thought, okay, well, now it's happening in my left eye. But the thing was, it started acting strange because as it was constructing itself, it was creating like right angles. It was, and I could see these like particles moving around, like in the space behind my eye where it had separated. That's where, like it did in my right eye, blood didn't fill in there. Instead, this thing moved in there, and it kept this space open. And he saw this on the image, the optometrist, and he says, well, that's weird, because how long has this been, been like that? And I go, for like over a year and a half. He goes, it should have closed up by now. He said, that's very strange that there's this space, there. And so he said, well, let's just, keep an eye on it, see, if it starts affecting your vision, let me know, and we'll, take another look at it and stuff. And so that's when I started noticing that it was giving off light, especially at night when I would go into my room. If it was dark, I would notice that there would be this red haze, and I would blink and then it would go away. And that's when I started seeing images on the wall, like moving animation, like a screensaver, a black and white screensaver of like spiders, like daddy long legs. And it would be climbing through these branches, these like strips of grass or whatever. And I could see it on the ceiling. And then as time went on and this thing was developing even more and more, it was rotating color. It was going from red to green to blue to purple. Mainly it was staying at red, but it would be, the extreme contrast, either red and black or green and black. And it would be of like a hillside with all this vegetation with these different paths cut through it. And this big spider would be going down these paths, and I would watch it, and then the scenery would be moving by, like an animation for a screensaver. And then it started. That one I see a lot. I mean, that one, if I concentrate on it and it starts moving, I get vertigo. I start getting motion sickness. You know, I start feeling motion sickness. But I can see it very clearly. I've learned recently that I can even kind of get it to go in the direction I want it to. And it's not always a spider. Sometimes it's like a cat, or sometimes it'll be like a little man riding a horse, but it's always the same kind of scenery. And then the other one that's really disorienting is like being at the top of a cliff, looking down into this valley with mountains on either side. And there's a waterfall falling, and it's like you're like I'm the drone, and it takes off and it starts flying down through this valley, you know, and it's going, you know, flying through this valley. And it starts if I don't stop paying attention to it, it starts making me feel sick to my stomach. And this thing is in my eye. And when the optometrist, what I've learned what it does is because when I go outside during the day in the daylight, when it's so bright outside, I can see through it clearly. You know, basically, I mean, it's a little blurry, but I mean, I can see through it. But when I'm in a low lit room, I can see the shadow of it, and I can see these particles moving around in it. So, you know, I'm sure it's smart dust, nanotechnology, whatever. And the other now in my right eye, I can see it looks like little worms of that. You know, have you ever seen some of these videos where
I have the same thing, Michael. I have the same thing, just so you know, the same exact thing. I have it in both of my eyes. I have sometimes it'll show white, and then how I described it is like you know how you send a paper like catch on fire and how it kind of bubbles up. That's what happens into my vision, and then I get strobe lights, like pat 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 strobe lights.
Yeah, I get this.
And in the one eye, that has something to do with the technology, how the brain is communicating with the eyes. It's malfunctioning. That's what's happening to the brain in the eyes, and that's why that's happening to you. So, but we do have to like wrap it up. We try to keep the interviews for like an hour long,
Right.
but I just wanted to I wanted to ask you if you had anything to say to encourage TIs that are going through this, or any advice that you can give to them before we wrap up.
Yeah, the only thing that I ever found that really helped, and I mean, and it's really hard to say is to somebody and have them follow it. And it's what Mon Senior told me. He said you need to not respond to them when they talk to you, when they do things. He said you need to act like you don't see it, hear it. You need to not respond to it. And I do that now. And only once in a while we'll say, yeah, you know, I know what you're doing. You know, cut your shit, whatever. You know, but that's really the only kind of advice. I mean, there's no real way of getting away from this. You know, I mean, it's once they target you, it's from that now. It's from then on. I mean, it's really, it sucks. It's inconvenient, you know. But I told them, I said, I'm not going to live my life in fear. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to live my life. And you know, if you're going to watch what I do and everything, well, then you're a pervert, and that's on you. I'm going to live my life. You know, oh, you'll just go out and do drugs. No, I'm not going to do drugs. I don't want to do drugs. You know, I said, but I'm not going to put up with your shit either. You know, and I said, so you just keep watching, do whatever you're doing, you know, because they like to zap me and do all this other shit to me, you know, and make me feel sick to my stomach. You know, you can be sure, Steven and Deserie, they are going to make me pay for this interview. I guarantee it.
Well, let's hope not.
Well, they'll make me sick. They do that. I mean, they like to make me sick to my stomach for like 5 days, you know. I mean, and it just like hits me like a brick, you know, like somebody just come out, boom, you know, that's what it's like. And I just like, oh my God. And hopefully they don't do that. But they've been, since Steven and I first started talking, they have been doing stuff like that. They zap me, they make poke me in the back and stuff, you know, which hurts like a motherfucker. You know? But they do shit like that. I hate that. But anyway, that's you know, I can't. The only advice I can say is, you know, you just really, have faith in God. I mean, that's really, who else can you turn to in something like this? I mean, the government hates us. They want us dead. We're just guinea pigs to them. That's what they're using. They're using this program to gather information through the AI. And I come to the conclusion that most of the time when I'm being targeted now, it's not a live actor or predator. It's the AI, and it's doing things because it wants to see my reaction and stuff. And so, I think that we're just innocent guinea pigs, and until the government, until they remove the DARPA and the FBI and all that stuff, it's gonna be haunting us for the rest of our lives.
Well, hey, Michael, I just want to say it's been great to hear from you. Just to the viewers, if you're watching this, you're probably a targeted individual. But for those who are not, if you happen to watch this, like, man, a story like this, it used to sound crazy to me too, but this is the world we live in now. Like, this is actually real.
Yeah.
So,
and people, I think, they all talk about getting tagged. The government's trying to tag. So we're all tagged. They've been dumping graphene oxide in the air and food and water. I mean, that's what this thing in my eye is. It's from the graphene oxide. And I didn't get the injection. So, there's no reason why I would have graphene oxide in my system except coming through, breathing it in, eating it, and so everybody's tagged. I mean, people think that this can't happen to them. Well, I have a feeling it's leading up to where they're going to start using it on big swaths of population, And I think people need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, we're just the first wave, but thank you so much, Michael, for coming on. And for our viewers, please subscribe to our channel. Next week, we are going to have my friend Scott come on. He's from the Board of PACS. So don't miss next week's episode. And do you have anything you want to end with, Steven?
No, just Michael. It was great to hear your story. Thanks for coming on, and everybody out there, have a great night.
Okay, bye everybody. Bye-bye.